Hello again everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, inspired by last week's flight, we're going to be making another New Zealand outing. I've certainly really been enjoying the New Zealand World Update. It's been a pretty busy week for me as well, so I thought we'd take the opportunity here to slow the pace down, enjoy some of the scenery, and take a beautiful vintage aircraft on one of my favourite routes over the South Island. Sticking with the Radial engine theme after our outing in the Caribou last week, this time we're going to be taking the Carenado Beechcraft 18 on another adventure. The perfect vintage airframe for this sort of flying, and it's been quite a while as well since we last flew the Beechcraft 18, so rather looking forward to getting back into the aircraft. As far as the flight itself goes, once again we're going to be exploring the scenery of New Zealand's South Island. We're going to be taking the aircraft on one of my favourite New Zealand routes. I'm sure that some of you might be familiar with it at this point if you've seen previous videos on the channel. We're going to be ferrying an empty Beechcraft 18 from Alexandra over towards Wanaka. It's a nice short hop with some really beautiful scenery, particularly on the arrival into Wanaka itself. So if you haven't done so already, I highly recommend going and checking out the route for yourselves. In the meantime though, I do hope of course that you enjoy coming along for the flight today. One last thing to get out of the way before we begin the trip. I do realise that my pronunciation of Wanaka throughout the flight was pretty off the mark, so apologies there to any New Zealand locals. Once again, we have an absolutely beautiful flight ahead of us, so let's head for the vintage cockpit of the Beechcraft 18, and we'll get the aircraft started up.
So we're back in the cockpit of the Carenado Beech 18 once again, and I think you can see for yourselves exactly why I fancied this particular combination of scenery and indeed aircraft. A really beautiful part of the world, again a really beautiful visual effort on the beach from Carenado. We're just going to be ferrying an empty aircraft up towards Wanaka this afternoon, so running through our before start checks. Magnetos are off, landing gear lever is down, flaps are up, cowl flaps are open, parking brake is set, fuel selectors are both on. We're going to be running on the front tanks, both on the left and the right for the duration of the flight. The start checks, again just confirming, park brake is set, flaps are up, fuel selectors are set. We'll be starting the left engine first, the mixture levers can go to fully rich. Prop levers are set to max RPM, we'll just crack the throttles 1/4 of an inch. Battery switches can go on, as can the generator switches. We'll prime the left engine. And the left engine now good on the prime. Engine mode selector can go to left. Magnetos are on. Pop the DV window. Doesn't look like there's anyone in the vicinity of the engine. We'll give them a shout. Clear prop. Fuel booster can go on. And we'll hit the starter. So a good start there on the left. Get rid of that fuel boost pump. And just come up on the throttle there to maintain 1000 RPM. So good there on the RPM, oil pressure still coming up there at the moment, just in the amber band. Fuel pressure warning lights out. The rest of the T's and P's looking pretty reasonable. Same on the right then, so mixture is set fully rich, prop is set to max RPM. Throttle open 1/4 of an inch. Battery and generators are on. We'll prime on the right. And we'll just lock up the primer again before we start the engine. Engine mode selector can go over to the right. Magnetos are both on. Fuel boost can go on again. And again, just checking everything clear on the right side. We'll engage the starter. And our Junior Wasp Radial engine there kicking into life. So good start there on the right. Once again we'll kill that booster pump. It's a noisy old thing, we'll guard that up. So 2 good starts. Again the oil pressure just in the amber band there at the moment. Rest of the T's and P's looking good. Beacon light can go on. Avionics master switch can go on. And the radios, we'll just wait for the GNS to initialise and then we'll set the radios up. Transponder can go to standby. HSI, we're showing a heading there of 205. And showing about 220 there on the compass. So we'll just realign that. First heading out towards our first waypoint is going to be 299, we'll set that on the course bar.
Sorry, Macquarie, swing 164 Delta, now 13 mile final runway 03, Macquarie.
There's 299, we'll leave the heading bug for now, we'll set that on runway heading once we make our way out towards the active runway. Altimeters, I'll set QNH as 2980. So transponder on standby, we're just going to do a direct 2 out towards Wanaka. And for that we're looking for November Zulu. Whiskey Foxtrot. There's Wanaka. Well, into that we can activate. Again, we'll just leave a direct 2 for now, but we're going to be visually flying most of the route today. So the avionics are set. That has us pretty much all set up for the flight and ready to go. We just need to swing ourselves around here. We'll make our way out towards the active runway. We'll carry out our run up. I'll come back to you again once we are at the holding point and ready to go. Right, so we're now down at the threshold for runway 32, we'll get the DV window closed up, we'll centre up our heading bug. So heading bug good, transponder can go to out, running through the last of our before takeoff checks, the carburetor heats are set to cold, fuel selectors are both on, just check our fuel quantities there as well. And showing just shy of about 4/10 there in each main tank. Tail wheel is locked, cowl flaps are both open, flaps are up, lights, get the landing lights on, and nav lights can go to flash. Engine T's and P's are checked and we are ready to go. So the park brake can come off, a slight bit of back pressure there on the yoke, just feeding in the throttles. And just using a little bit of braking here as well initially to keep the aircraft straight on the runway. So there's full power. RPMs look good, T's and P's look good. Coming back on the yoke. And we're airborne. Tap the brakes, the gear can come up. Now we're just going to pitch for around 120 knots here in the climb. Climbing almost straight ahead, we're going to be tracking down the valley just off tower 11 o'clock. Coming up through 500 feet, so we'll come back on the power now, we'll go for 30 inches manifold pressure here in the climb. And we'll go for around 2200 RPM. So the aircraft climbing away nicely, temperatures and pressures looking good. And the after takeoff checks, the gear is up, flaps are up, T's and P's are checked, power is set. So just tracking out past the town of Clyde currently. We should have the Clyde Dam just off somewhere at our 10 o'clock. That's a little bit buried away just down by the side of the hill. We'll get a closer look at that in just a moment's time. Climb up to around 3,000 feet. We're not going to climb particularly high today. Really want to enjoy the scenery here as much as we can. So there's the Clyde Dam passing just out the front of the left engine. That leads us in towards the reservoir and up towards the Clutha River. So we're going to be tracking the Clutha River initially out towards the north. That'll lead us in towards the town of Cromwell. We'll see that fairly shortly. So just coming up on our 3,000 feet, we'll get the aircraft levelled off. We'll trim for that. Coming up on 140 knots, so we'll reduce the power. We'll come back to 25 inches and 2,000 RPM. And getting a few bumps here as you come down the valley. That's to be expected. We'll come out on the range on the GNS 530 here. Currently showing 25 miles to run towards Wanaka. And doing about 140 knots. So it's going to take us roughly 12-13 minutes to reach destination. So as I say, we can just follow the course of the river for now. You can see that opens up into a larger valley at the end of these mountains, and that takes us in towards the town of Cromwell. As we are getting bumped around quite a bit here, I think we'll climb a little bit higher. We'll come up to 5,000 feet. So we'll come back up to 22 RPM and back up to 30 inches on the manifold pressure. Hopefully just gaining a little bit more altitude here will help keep us out the worst of the bumps. And the Beech 18 really seems to have a lot of performance up its sleeve in the sim, I suspect more so than in real life. So we're already going through 1,500 feet permanent rate of climb here, already up through 4,000 feet. Going to be up at 5,000 feet in absolutely no time at all. Also, I suppose a little bonus of climbing that little bit more, we do get to enjoy some more of the scenery. And again, just a really spectacular part of the world, New Zealand, particularly the South Island. Just coming up from 5,000, we'll keep an eye on the altitude there. And again, levelling the aircraft off. And again, we'll come back to 25 inches and 2,000 RPM. Up at 5,000 feet as well now, so we can start reducing those mixtures. We'll just lean back towards richer peaky GT. Okay, so peak looks to be around 600 degrees. So we'll just go for around 550. Just reduce our fuel burn a little bit, help the engines run a tiny bit more efficiently there as well. So again, opening up into the valley, again, absolutely beautiful part of the world. We've got the reservoir just off on the 1 o'clock position. Not sure whether or not that's the Clutha Reservoir or the Cromwell Reservoir. We've got the town of Cromwell just down below us. And you can see as well we've got the Cromwell racecourse out at our 10 o'clock. There's actually a little landing strip down there as well. Interestingly there, the snow just picking up as we approach. That's a little bit strange. Anyway, turning on to a heading of 004. We'll set that on the CDI bar. Just as a reference, we don't obviously need it here for navigation today.
Quite traffic QA 47 Delta, 10 mile per hour, runway 21, full correct.
So 004, we'll do the same on the heading bug. But again, just turning to track and continue to follow the course of the river. We've also got the highway passing just down below us. That's the SH8 highway looking at the chart. I'm sure that will mean a lot more to any Kiwis amongst you than it does to me. As I mentioned during the introduction though, one of my favourite quick little routes in the sim. It's, again, absolutely wonderful scenery. Nice quick flight as well, with a little bit of variation. Obviously we've got the hills, we've got the water, as well as the little valley pass that we just flew down. So saying goodbye to the town of Cromwell, that's just passing behind us. We should have Pisa Moorings, another little town passing just down below on our left. I think we can see that down there out of the DV window. And that's pretty much it now in terms of features until we reach Wanaka itself. We'll just continue to follow the course of the river. You can see ahead that the valley sort of splits into two, and indeed the course of the river actually splits out to both the north and out towards the northeast. We're going to be tracking the river out towards the north. And that's going to gently curve around towards the west, taking us straight in towards Wanaka itself. Just climbing a little bit here currently, so we'll pitch the nose down, we'll get ourselves back down to 5,000 feet. Presumably we're getting a little bit of lift here, the speed picking up as we do so. Coming up to almost 150 knots, so really cracking over the ground. 150 knots there on the ground speed as well. So we've probably got a very slight headwind here at the moment. Up at 5,000 feet we'd expect our true airspeed to be slightly higher than our indicated airspeed. I suppose really this is one of the best times of the year to be flying in New Zealand. Obviously again you've just got that lovely variation between still having some beautiful scenery to look at, but also having the snow coverage. And up at 5,000 feet, so I guess it's going to be about 10 degrees cooler up here than it is down at ground level. And again I think it just makes for a really wonderful flight. So we've still got the river just down below us. You can see that again out the DV window there, just curving out towards the north. And you can see the valley we're going to be taking out towards the north west there. We'll follow that in towards Wanaka. The SH8 highway that we talked about a moment ago, that follows out towards the northeast, so that breaks off out to the right there, up in towards the high terrain off in the distance. There shouldn't be too much wind around in Wanaka, so we're planning on making a straight approach here. We'll get our downwind checks out of the way now as a result, just to save some time later on. So just check our fuel quantities first off. Down to around 3.5 tenths on each of the main tanks. We'll check the rears as well, showing 1/10 on each of those. Again, not planning on using those for the flight today. So for the downwind checks, the brakes are checked and off. Undercarriage will hold. Mixtures will leave for the time being. Fuel pump will leave off, again just for the noise if nothing else. Fuel quantities are checked. Flight instruments are checked. And harness is secure. So we can turn back onto heading of 292, but we're just going to be following the course of that river, and actually Wanaka itself just sitting on the shore of Lake Wanaka, which you can see out at our 11 o'clock. So really easy visual navigation for us today. Another reason that I rather enjoy the flight. Pretty straightforward routing. and the weather's been pretty kind to us today. I've certainly come across in this part of the world with much worse weather. New Zealand seems to be one of those countries that has about 10 different types of weather in a day, at least in some locations, and from what I gather from the Kiwis that I've spoken to as well, there's certainly different parts of the country tend to have different types of weather more regularly than others. I was chastised in a previous video for saying that the South Island is typically cloudy. Apparently that's not the case, but I believe in the north it's fairly typical to have cloud. So again, following the course of this river for now, that's going to take us past the town of Lugate. Pretty small little dwelling by the looks of it on the chart. And then after that, the next stop will be Wanaka, which is a much more sizable urban area. As I say, not anticipating too much wind here, but we'll overfly the airfield just to see what the windsock's doing. In terms of the aerodrome elevation, we're looking at about 1,100 feet, so we'll descend down into the circuit pattern, which is going to be, call it 2,200. So we'll descend down to 2,700 initially, so to do that we'll just start coming back off the power. Just coming back to 18 inches on the manifold pressure for now. I'm not going to bother with the carb heats here. As I mentioned during my review of the aircraft, unfortunately the carb heats don't actually function off the key binding, and I don't want to be fiddling around with those in the traffic pattern, certainly not on short final, so we'll just leave that as is. So that power setting is giving us a pretty nice descent rate there, around 500 feet per minute. That's what we're looking for. And just keeping an eye out now for Wanaka itself, or at least the airfield. So we've got the south-eastern shoreline of the lake there off to our 1 o'clock, and it's actually the south-western shoreline we're looking for in terms of the airfield. In fact, in actuality, the airfield's broadly located equidistant between the two. I think we can actually see it just off to our 11 o'clock. A little bit tricky to make the runway, but you can see, I think, the hangar buildings just out to the south-westerly end of the runway. So it looks like that's going to be runway 29. And once again, I think pretty clear why I enjoy this particular routing. It's got to be one of the most beautiful arrivals into any airport in the sim. So just coming onto a downwind position, we'll try and keep a good eye out for a windsock. And we'll just come up slightly again on the power just to shallow up our descent a little bit here. So we've got runway 29 left. We've also got the grass runway, but we'll take the hardened surface. Save us cleaning the tyres later on. Just about make out the windsock between the two runways. Looks to be pretty dead there at the moment. If anything, slightly favouring 29, so we'll stick with our plan. I don't know, there's a bit of an issue with the weather in the sim at the moment. We've got the altimeter set, but to me that looks about right in terms of traffic pattern height. If anything, we look a little bit low here, so we're not going to descend any lower for now. We'll just turn into the traffic pattern. I think that's probably one of these Microsoft Flight Simulator quirks as opposed to anything else. According to the chart I'm looking at here, it's 1,100 feet aerodrome elevation. So just turning onto a crosswind. Track outbound on a crosswind momentarily. We do have some pretty high terrain around us as well, of course, so that's probably making the circuit look lower as well. let's keep a good eye on the runway, nicely on a downwind position. And again, we know we've got our downwind checks out of the way, so that's freed us up quite nicely. We can just continue on our downwind here. A little bit of lift off the hills. We'll give ourselves a nice long downwind, there's no one else in the pattern. Give ourselves plenty of time to get the aircraft set up for the approach. So just coming up on the threshold for 29 left, we'll continue tracking outbound as I say. Fairly tight downwind here as well, so we'll be turning quite quickly onto final. And that's looking pretty good now, so we'll just start going back off that power again. Just nudge the throttle forward to kill the gear warning horn, we'll take the gear down. We'll start our turn now onto base. We do have a gear down indication, getting the speed back into the white arc so we can start taking the flap. And looking good there now on the speed, so we'll take a stage of flap. Looking good in terms of our profile, so we'll just maintain the speed and the flap setting for now. All good on final. So coming straight around onto 29 left, we'll take another stage of flap. And we'll try landing here at flaps 35, flaps 45 is an awful lot of drag, we don't really need it. We've got plenty of runway. So just maintaining 100 knots for now. Coming back off the throttles just to lose a little bit of altitude. And running through our final checks, pitch is full fine, undercarriage is down, flaps are set. Land clearance not required, the runway is clear. And just coming up on the throttles again, really wanting to maintain around 100 knots for now, that's blue line by the looks of things on the airspeed indicator. The aircraft not really naturally wanting to fly at that sort of speed though, it seems to be wanting to sit around 90 knots. Anyway, we're going to start coming back off the power now, we want to land close to the threshold. Just help get us off at the runway exit. So chopping the throttles, holding the Beech 18 off. Fairly firm touchdown there. Luckily we didn't have any passengers on board, so no one will be any the wiser. But nonetheless, I've done better landings. Yeah, so I think we just bled off a tiny bit too much speed there coming into the flare, and I think the aircraft dropped out of the sky a little bit on us. Anyway, vacating off to the left, we'll find somewhere to park up. We might have been better as well there going with flaps 45 just for the sake of the landing. Flaps can come up.
Sorry, using Golf X-ray. Airborne, left turn. Starting flight level. Overhead field, traffic form, sorry.
Looks like there's a little spot here off to the right of the Mooney or the Bonanza. So we'll just take that in towards the terminal. And just coming gently onto the brakes, park brake can go on. Idling back at 1000 RPM. So we'll just run through our after landing checks, the landing lights can come off. Nav lights can go back to steady. Transponder is off. We'll get the avionics master off as well. And running through the shutdown checks, flaps are up. Mixtures are set. Power levers are set. Engine temperatures and pressures look good. We'll cut the engines. So we'll cut the left engine first. And nice run down there on the left. We'll do the same on the right. Taking a little while there to wind down on the right. 2 good shutdowns. We'll close the throttles. Mags can come off. Alternators and batteries can go off. And that's the shutdown checklist complete.
So there you go, guys. I do hope you enjoyed another New Zealand outing, this time of course in the Carenado Beechcraft 18. The aircraft itself is far from perfect, but I certainly think it's a very enjoyable option for this sort of flying. And once again, as always really, the New Zealand scenery within the sim just never failing to disappoint. I promised you at the start of the video that the route is pretty special. I certainly always enjoy it, I hope you did as well, and I highly recommend going and giving it a go for yourselves. As always, if you did enjoy the flight, then please consider giving the video a like. If you want to see more content from the channel, then please consider subscribing as well. A very big thank you once again to my channel members and patrons for all of your support, it is hugely appreciated. And of course, I do hope that all of you are having a great day wherever you are. Take really good care, and I will see you all again soon.